Hello, I'm Randy McClure. Welcome to the latest supply chain tech brief.
You know that feeling, right? You're tracking a package, and then poof, it just vanishes into that black hole of in transit for days on end. It's beyond frustrating. Well, today we're going to look at how a new type of AI isn't just tweaking shipment tracking, it's blowing it up and starting over with a ridiculously simple idea. Okay, just to set the stage, let's start with a pretty staggering number. Companies are throwing an insane amount of money at this problem. Right now, up to a quarter, 25% of all IT budgets go toward data integration projects. Basically, just trying to make all their different tracking systems talk to each other. Which, leads to the big question. If we're spending all that cash, all that time, all that effort, why does tracking a simple package from a warehouse to your house still feel like a total guessing game? Why is it still so broken? So in this explainer, we're going to unpack all of that. We'll start with what we're calling the visibility black hole. Then we'll get into the old habits that are causing all the trouble. From there, we'll introduce a totally new way to see a solution, lay out what a picture-perfect fix looks like, and finally, get into how to actually make it all work. All right, first up, let's talk about this problem we all know and hate, the visibility black hole. The thing is, this isn't because people aren't trying or spending enough money. It's because even with all that investment, the system is just fundamentally flawed. There are these huge gaps where information just disappears, and that creates a massive lack of trust for everyone involved in getting something from A to B. So why does that happen? Well, to get it, we really have to look at the villain of our story. These ancient, outdated methods we're still using to handle tracking data. And here's the absolute heart of the problem. The data doesn't flow. A scan that happens in a warehouse in one country gets logged into a system that speaks a totally different language than the shipping company's system, which is different again from the system at the final port. Every piece of info is stuck in its own little box, its own data silo. It really feels like two different eras are just clashing head on. On one side, you have a huge chunk of the industry that's still basically running on data methods from the 1970s. We're talking bulky, clunky data formats that are constantly being translated, which, by the way, is super error prone. And on the other side, you have the modern world, which needs information that is real time, universally understood, and most of all, trusted. The gap between them is just enormous. But here's the thought. What if we could just stop trying to translate all these old, broken languages and just leapfrog the entire problem? And that brings us to the hero of our story, a completely new way to see. The big idea here is a complete mindset shift. Instead of trying to build even more complicated translators, what if we used a technology that doesn't need them at all? And that technology is computer vision AI. And honestly, it's not as sci-fi as it might sound. At its core, computer vision AI is just two simple things: a camera to grab a picture and some smart software that's been trained to understand what it's looking at. It basically gives a computer the ability to see a pallet on a loading dock, read the label on it, and know what it is, just like a person would. Okay, so how does this seeing computer fix our global tracking nightmare? Well, it all comes together in what we're calling the picture perfect solution. This is the key insight. I mean, think about it. A bunch of code is totally meaningless to most of us, but a picture of your package sitting on that specific shelf in that warehouse at this exact time, that is a universal language. Anyone, anywhere can understand it instantly, no translation required. And the process itself becomes incredibly straightforward. First, a camera just snaps a picture of the package. That photo gets sent up to a central AI hub. The AI looks at it, understands it, and then sends out a simple, clear status update, like package arrived at Linden Warehouse. And just like that, everyone involved has trusted visual proof. The data silos are gone, no more lost in translation errors. So, this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually make it happen? Let's walk through the key ideas that turn this from a concept into a reality. So key number one is pretty simple. You have to know which package you're looking at. But the real beauty of computer vision is how flexible it is. Sure, it can read a regular old barcode, but it can also use something called optical character recognition, OCR, to read a tracking number that's just printed on a box, or even one that's handwritten. This creates this amazing digital thread that links every single image to one specific shipment. All right. Key number two is all about radical simplification. The old way needed dozens and dozens of different data points, all of which had to be translated and standardized. This new image-based approach just throws pretty much all of that in the trash. In fact, you really only need four things. The picture itself, that's your visual proof. The tracking ID, so you know what it is. A timestamp, so you know when the picture was taken, and a location ID, so you know where it was. That's it. That's the whole shebang. This minimalism is exactly what lets the system sidestep all those old, messy integration problems. And the final key, number three, is all about the architecture. You don't want every location to have its own little computer trying to interpret images and create its own data. That just creates new silos. Instead, you send the raw, unprocessed image directly to a single central AI in the cloud. This makes sure there's only one interpretation, one source of truth for absolutely every. For decades, the absolute holy grail in logistics has been this concept of a single source of truth. Just one universally accepted, totally accurate record of where shipment is and has been. But as this quote points out, it's always felt like a bit of an impossible dream. But by making this huge shift, moving away from translating abstract data and instead sharing concrete visual proof, computer vision AI might actually be the thing that delivers on that promise. It creates a level of trust and transparency that was literally impossible with the old way of doing things. For years, we've been trying to solve this problem by teaching old, clunky systems to speak new languages. But maybe the answer was never about translation at all. Maybe it was about finding a language that every person and every machine already understands. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question. Could a simple picture finally be the single source of truth that global logistics has been desperately searching for all along?
Hello, this is Raymond McClure from SC Tech Insights. Thank you for listening. For more on this topic, click the article link below or go to www.sctechinsights.com for the latest insights on supply chain technology. Thank you and see you next time.